There, I am Megan from JimMonkey.com, and thank you so much. I'm a huge Center Stage fan, so but I'm dying to know. So the story is rooted in a lot of like Mayan culture and Mesoamerican culture. So do you recall any stories or myths growing up that were passed down and shared within your family?
Oh my God, yes, but my folklore is more Caribbean indigenous and Caribbean African Caribbean. And it's mainly very like very Dominican Republic, Quisqueya, which is the indigenous name for our island, the island that we share with Haiti, Dominican Republic. And there was this mythology of this woman, this indigenous woman called La Ciguapa, and where her feet were backwards and her hair was super long covering her naked body, and she would come out at night, and she had a true sense of justice for the voiceless. And I remember being little and my great grandpa telling me the story of Lassie Wap, and I was just like, what?
My question is, when you read the script originally, the quote that said, in the series, if it is meant to be, or if it is to be, it is up to me. What did that mean to you when you first read it? And did the meaning change for you as you read it, as you read the script or as you filmed?
I found myself getting emotional as we kept like sort of going through episode after episode, and I was witnessing like just her journey. This show is not it's not light. It's gonna go there on all these emotions and all these peaks and valleys of life. And so at first you're saying it, and I felt like I was living a parallel life with Maya, where she's just like saying it and not really believing in it. But challenge after challenge, after she survives that challenge, and now she's faced with another one, and how like that phrase just would take a deeper and deeper meaning for her. It was also becoming very deep for me. And there were moments in which Jorge and I were getting choked up, and I know it's hard to say that, oh my God, really, you got choked up like just voicing an animation, but you really do, you get involved. And especially when a story is so well written, so well fleshed out, when it comes to a human being's like emotional journey into just not just finding themselves, but also accepting so many things of themselves.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's a very powerful phrase.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it so much. So we loved the episodes that we watched, and I wanted to know, what similarities do you have to your character, and what would you like your audience goers to take away?
The similarities that I have with Maya, thank you. That's actually a really great question. I do remember what it was like to know who I was and know what I wanted to do. And I remember, my mom, my dad, and my grandma like always wanting me to be what they thought that I should do. It's such a universal thing, and me being really radical and very rebellious about that. I remember being 15 and thinking that oh my God, it's the end of the world. And I think it was just refreshing to sort of get to revisit those emotions. I feel like the biggest takeaway are a couple in this story. To have a female heroine at the helm of a beautiful, adventurous, aesthetically amazing, epic story, it's more, please. We need that representation does matter. It is primordial. It is essential to the building of a person's identity, to the building of someone's character, not just of one singular person, but also of a community, and then eventually of a nation. I think that's so important now. What I like about the way that Jorge Gutierrez and Sandra do it is that they come from a place of love and celebration rather than from a place of social justice. So all of these nuances of Mesoamerican cultures and Caribbean sort of like, cultural tones are just an icing on a cake that is all about family and love and loss and action and friendship and identity, not just of cultural identity, identity, but also like, you know, gender identity. And, but it's done in a very subtle, but also very mature way. And his main audience are young people. So everything about the way Jorge is creating sort of a career for himself, lets you know that his talent is undeniable, but also like his heart is really big. But I can talk about Jorge, you know, all that.
What drew you to this role, and why did you want to be a part of this series?
Jorge Gutierrez. When I worked with him on Book of Life, I had such a wonderful experience. I was in awe of him. I was starving for, you know, creatives like him, where, you know, we shared, you know, our Latinx sort of like heritage. What else? I like the fact that his like animation is very authentic, very original. It's unlike anything you've seen before. It's just, everything about that is wonderful. He did on the red carpet of Book of Life ask me that if he invited me to another adventure, would I join him? And I said, absolutely yes. I didn't think he was going to, you know, keep his promise, and he did. And so, of course, I kept mine, and I willingly, with my open heart, did it. And I was really honored and excited. And obviously, you know, getting to work with him again was fun, but it is exhausting because you can't, no matter how much you try, match Jorge's energy when you're in a session with him, because he gives 110% on everything. He's all in at all times. He's all in. And that is a challenge that if you accept, you learn to have just as much fun as Jorge, but that means that by the time you finish your session, you're exhausted. So, but you'll get to see it because Maya is loud and she's proud and she's feisty and she's in your face. You know what I mean? And she makes these mistakes out loud. And I feel like everything about Maya is undeniably female and all woman. And I really feel that Jorge captured what a woman is, you know, in a girl's form, because he really wanted to celebrate the women in his life that mean so much to him, that raise him every day. And so obviously I wanted to make him proud.
Watched this with my 8 and 10-year-old girls, and they're like, I want to be like Maya. I can be like Maya. Girls can do anything. Which is, you know, something your other roles have also inspired in them. And I'm curious if that's something you look for in a role when you take it on.
You know, I didn't before. Before I became a mom, I looked for roles that ever since I was a child, I was just curious and really passionate about. Like my idols were Whoopi Goldberg, Sigourney Weaver, and Linda Hamilton. And I would watch their movies over and over again. I did not want to be the princess. I wanted to be the queen. I wanted to be the warrior, you know, but I wanted to do it in space, and I wanted to fight aliens. And these were all the games that I played. And it would feel really lonely and very disheartening when I was sometimes reminded that I needed to be something else, that I was not okay, you know, having these urges and these desires and stuff. And so obviously becoming an actor, I was always leading with my heart. I was raised to just lead life with my heart. So when films like Star Trek and filmmakers like J.J. Abrams and James Cameron for Avatar approach me and they invite me to be a part of their world, like their world is the funnest world in the world. You know what I mean? Like I worked with Steven Spielberg, like all these people that gave themselves the permission to imagine the unimaginable. And here they were looking at this little girl from Queens, and I fit in that world for them. So that is what gave me, you know, that affirmation that who I am and what I like in life means something. And it means, and others, people of my likeness will see it. You know, I guess now that I'm a mother, my goal is to continue doing that, but to add representation to that, you know, because I also know what it was like to be invisible, not just by gender, but also culturally invisible in a land where my pledge of allegiance was inclusive, but I felt excluded many, many times. And I felt like I always had to work twice as hard to just get the okay from something sometimes. And you sort of go, I don't want my kids to be exhausted by the time they're teenagers, because they always have to work twice as hard to be seen and heard. So I guess that I can be a part of change, like singular little me, by just knowing and curating the art that I'm a part of, and the stories that I get to tell, so that when they look at them, they kind of go, my mom did really live by that word, that and that craft and that path. And I am somebody because my mom told me to, like, I feel like that's important.
Do you have a favorite scene or episode?
In Maya, let me see, let me think about it, because I have many. I like the episodes of her and her brothers. I think that they're just so great. And I know that, obviously I don't want to give much away, but a lot happens to them. But I just like the way that they are a part of her life, and she's always thinking of them.
Considering Indigenous characters only make up to 0.4% of characters portrayed in film and television, what do you hope Indigenous children will take away from your character, Maya? That they are beautiful and that they are meant to be. I get emotional because this is something that it's important for children of color, that they matter, that their stories matter, that their history matters, and that nobody has to give you that anymore. It's yours. It's always been yours. And I think it's up to us. We also have a lot of power. I feel like a lot of time is spent sometimes pointing the finger, and not enough time is spent investing on our communities ourselves, like on our education, uplifting each other, so that once we rise to these positions of leadership, then we become those gatekeepers. And we are in that journey. America is about to witness a beautiful renaissance. And obviously that takes time, unfortunately, but we're on it already. We're on it. And we just have to stay the course. Your job as journalists and mothers as well is to hold everybody accountable. You all have to watch this. It is on us. We have to. We can't just, your time and your money is the power and the validation that we give to all the content that blatantly omits us from their narrative. We are the ones that have perpetuated this. Please understand that when it comes to studios, they're not just the bad cops. We have been the bad cops as well. But when you say, you will no longer take my time, you will no longer take my money, I don't have to watch you, because I'm going to spend all of who I am promoting and amplifying and growing this community, this visibility. That's when all the studios and all those executives are going to be like, oh, we got to chase the money where it's going. We have to be pragmatic about this. They're just giving us what we're giving back to them. Take it away and you see how the narrative immediately in America changes. We are a nation of capitalism. You don't hit them in the heart, you hit them in the pocket. That's all I'm going to say. Come on, we got to be pragmatic about this.
What will be the message that you have for the millions of Latino kids that finally have a character that they can identify with on a cartoon?
I hope this makes you feel happy and seen and heard. And I hope that this inspires you to continue growing and learning and following a path of leadership so that you can open these doors in the future. Because every child given access to a decent education has the ability to rule the world.
So I'd like to know what one thing you walked away with playing this role and being Maya. Because it seems that you're very emotionally tied to it. So is there just one thing or multiple things?
But remember too, like, we're all moms. Like, I allow myself to cry over anything that moves me and everything that moves me. That said, I will not take away the value and the impact that working with Jorge has had on me once again, but also us being able to, in a very beautiful way, have the opportunity with a platform like Netflix to share our heritage. is fun. It's exciting. It's like once we remove all the heaviness of social justice as well, that I know that we all wake up so responsible and so charged every day because our children depend on it. But also our culture is beautiful. Our culture is rich, and it is old as F. It is thousands of years old. So for us to unearth it, all of our mythologies and our folklore, and just do it in a way that we're just dressing it. Our history, we're just dressing our history. You know what we're dressing? We're dressing these universal themes of life and love and loss and friendship. We're just dressing that with our history, our heritage. But in reality, this is universal. So what I want is for everybody to feel happy and to share. Please share who you are, even if it's just one person that's listening. That's enough. Share who you are. Be proud of who you are.
We briefly touched about some of the amazing mythical creatures and some of the stories you heard growing up as a kid. I'd love to know if you could embody or be a mythical creature, what would you be and why?
I would be La Chihuahua, like I said, because I remember spending countless hours just trying to imagine her in my galaxy of a brain. And then I would be your chupacabra. Because my sons are obsessed with it, and I just like the way that they're pronouncing it, because they don't even say it correctly. It's just one of my boys has, he says his R's in his own way, and we love it. And I know that we have to find a speech therapist for it, because he's going to be 7. But then I'm going to miss the way he says his R's, So when he goes to chupacabra, it's just the most endearing thing. So I would love to be that for him.
How you would describe Maya, because she's such a great character.
She is sassy. She is independent. She is very wholesome. Even at 15, she knows who she is. And I just love that about people. Every now and then you meet people at whatever age, even when they're like 6 months old, and you're like, you know who you are, you know exactly who you are. Like their personality is just there, and that's exactly how Jorge wanted her. And I think that she is a combination of all these women, these female heroines in Jorge's life, from his mom, his wife, and his sister. And he definitely wanted me to make her be bold and beautiful and just, rebellious. But I remember that wasn't the way that he described it. He was just like, I want you to be her. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, do you want this? Like, yeah, I want Zoe. Like, I'm like, oh, okay. But that made me think is like, oh, how am I? Like, how do people really see me? You know what I mean? But maybe it's a cultural thing. Like, we with Latinas, we always come super hard. And I feel like Maya is going to be that person. But what I love the most about Maya, the way that Jorge really wanted her to be, like, when she was wrong, she was wrong. Like, so there's something really wholesome about her. And when I say wholesome, I don't mean just everything that makes her perfectly her. It's also everything that makes her just perfectly flawed, and because that she needs rescuing from her friends. She needs to be told from her friends, like, how she needs to be a better person. And I love the fact that he gave her so much humility of character to acknowledge when she was wrong.
So you talked about being sassy and really just essentially being yourself. And Maya does have so much life and energy. So I'm curious to know how you kind of prep yourself going into a booth for a session like that versus, a sad session.
To be quite honest, I really, working with Jorge for the second time, you don't really have to prep that much. We had already discussed who Maya was and what the world was in the beginning. So walking into sessions also sometimes like a good thing when you come in and you're super fresh, because Jorge may want to give you something to work with. And if you come with this pretense sort of like decision that this is what I'm going to be, then you're unable to kind of absorb where your director wants to take you. But I always came prepared, and what I've learned from working with Jorge is whatever I came prepared with, he is going to intensify it times 50. So it's like, oh no, you're gonna scream, but I want you to scream. And you're like, okay. And then when you cry, it's they would sometimes watch me. If the renderings were there at whatever level they were in, he was able to play something for me for either a minute or two. And that would then help me sort of imagine where the settings of where we are, what we're doing. And then through obviously sense memory and stuff like that, like then you work backwards but he's always there, and he never lets you down, and he'll always tell you, it's like, I think I want you to push a little further. I think I want you to explore this but remember too, like me as an adult and as a mom of like, former toddlers, boys now, like you live in constant, like, what do I censor? What do I censor? I'm like, do you really want to go there? And he's like, yeah, these are emotions that we go through as people. And we can't censor this from children. They're going to go through it regardless. If a child if you lose a parent and your child is there and they lose a grandma, they lost their grandma. You can't sugarcoat that. You can't, lie about that. You can't act like it's not there. You got to walk through it with them. So I was just like, wow, he's going to go there. And this is such a mature approach for animation, and it's necessary. It's so necessary.
Well, thank you. Your battle cry was absolutely phenomenal. So we appreciate you taking the time with us today.
Thank you for your questions.